The news coming out of Burkina Faso in March 2026 is not the kind that makes it onto the front pages of Western newspapers. There are no dramatic summits, no aid announcements, no peacekeeping press conferences. What is happening is quieter and in many ways more consequential. The government of Captain Ibrahim Traoré has just commissioned its third cement factory in under 2 years. And as that factory begins to hum, it lands in the middle of a country that is, right now, at this moment in 2026, rewriting the terms of its own existence. To understand what the third cement commissioning means, you have to start with where Burkina Faso is standing today. Kindly subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. This is not 2022, when Traoré took power from a floundering transitional government. 3.5 years have passed since that September coup, and those years have been dense. By the end of 2025, his government had declared food self-sufficiency, a claim rooted in a record cereal harvest driven by mechanization, improved seed distribution, and direct state investment in rural production. It had nationalized 5 foreign-owned gold mining assets, then used the revenue generated by gold's surging global price to repay more than $2 billion of domestic debt, cutting the country's debt burden by a quarter in a single stroke. And just 13 days ago, on March 9, 2026, the government of Burkina Faso launched the RELANCE Plan, a 5-year national development plan covering 2026 through 2030. The price tag is $64 billion. That figure is not a foreign aid wish list. 2/3 of that money is projected to come from within, from state-owned enterprise revenues and citizen shareholding programs. Finance Minister Abubakar Nakanabo described it plainly when he said that by using sovereign resources, the country can sustainably transform its economy and improve the lives of its people. The plan places industrialization at the top of its priorities. The third cement factory is not a coincidence. It is a product of exactly this moment. Now look at the cement sector itself, because in 2026, it is revealing something fascinating. Burkina Faso is building production capacity faster than it can keep the lights on. This week, as the government commissions its third cement facility, the country is also in the middle of a cement shortage driven not by lack of factories, but by an energy deficit. As temperatures rise with the dry season heat, electricity consumption across Ouagadougou surges, and there is not enough power to go around. The existing cement factories, including Simfeso and Simaso, have had their production throttled. Their Director General, Kassim Zampalagar, went on national television on March 18 to explain that the shortage is primarily the result of this energy constraint, and to reassure the public that prices have not changed. The cement exists. The capacity exists. What is missing is a stable energy supply to run the machines at full capacity during peak demand periods. That tension is important. It is the tension of a country that is industrializing faster than its energy infrastructure can currently support. And it is also, in the logic of Traoré's government, an argument for why the next step matters as much as the factories themselves. That next step is already underway. The Cements de l'Afrique plant in Ouagadougou, known as CEMAF, is in the final stages of completing a calcined clay production unit and an integrated solar power installation. That project, which began construction in August 2024, is due for completion by August 2026. It is a $55 million investment. The solar component is not a cosmetic addition. It is a direct response to exactly the kind of energy disruption the sector is experiencing right now. By generating its own power from solar, CEMAF will be able to maintain production during periods of grid stress, stabilizing its output and reducing its operating costs simultaneously. The calcined clay unit addresses a different structural problem. Because Burkina Faso is landlocked, clinker, the core raw material in standard cement production, has to travel at least 1,200 kilometers to reach Ouagadougou. Every kilometer adds cost. The calcined clay technology replaces a significant share of that imported clinker with locally processed clay dug from Burkinabe soil. When that plant comes fully online in August 2026, it will fundamentally change the cost structure of cement production in the country. Cheaper inputs plus solar-powered production equals lower cement prices for every builder, contractor, and household in the country. Traoré himself said as much at the groundbreaking. He told the gathered crowd he hoped the solar technology would spread across the sector and eventually make it possible to reduce cement costs nationwide. That was not a vague aspiration. It was a roadmap. And now there are 3 facilities. 3 cement commissionings in under 2 years. The first was the CEMAF expansion itself, which added the calcined clay and solar components to an existing plant. The second was Sisanob, the Sino-Burkinabe Industrial Cement Company, commissioned in March 2025 in Leongo in the Plateau Central region, a $43 million joint venture with Chinese investors producing 2,000 tons of cement per day. The third is the new commissioning the government has just completed, adding another layer of capacity to a sector that was, just 3 years ago, so dependent on imports that cement appeared among Burkina Faso's top 5 import categories by value. Each of these factories represents a direct decision by Traoré's government to manufacture rather than import, to keep the value in the country, to keep the jobs in the country, and to reduce the drain on foreign exchange that has historically come with buying from abroad what you could be producing at home. There is a market dimension to this that often goes unreported. The entry of Sisinab into the cement market last year sent a clear signal to the incumbent players. For years, Burkina Faso's cement market was shaped by companies operating at regional scale, including the distribution arm of Dangote Cement, which has long held significant influence across West Africa's construction materials sector. A locally manufactured, Chinese technology plant producing 2,000 tons per day at competitive prices does not just create supply. It creates competitive pressure. It pushes prices down. It forces other suppliers to reconsider their margins. Traoré acknowledged this dynamic at the Sisinab inauguration when he told Burkinabe investors and international partners alike that the country remains open to sincere and respectful partnerships. The emphasis on respect is deliberate. He is not closing the country to foreign business. He is changing the terms on which foreign business operates. The new standard is one where the national economy benefits visibly and concretely, where jobs stay in Burkina Faso, where technology is transferred, where raw materials are sourced locally wherever possible. Step back now and look at 2026 in full. What you see is a government that has moved past the announcement phase and into the delivery phase. The RELANCE National Development Plan is now officially adopted, a structured $64 billion blueprint for the next 5 years, with industrialization as a stated priority. The goal is not just to produce cement. It is to process raw materials domestically across the economy, to reduce import dependency systematically, and to anchor employment in productive sectors rather than subsistence and informal trade. The military has, by the government's account, reclaimed approximately 75% of national territory by the end of 2025, up from around 60% when Traoré took power. Security remains the daily reality against which everything else is measured, and the insurgency has not been eliminated. But the government's position is that economic sovereignty and security sovereignty are two sides of the same coin. You cannot defend a country that does not produce. You cannot sustain an army on imports. And you cannot ask young men and women to fight for a future that has nothing to offer them when the guns go down. The cement factories are, in this reading, as much a security strategy as an industrial one. Consider also the human arithmetic of what is being built. Sisinab alone employs 110 workers in permanent roles and 300 in seasonal positions, with projections for over 1,300 long-term jobs as the plant expands to its full capacity of 1.2 million tons per year. Multiply that employment effect across 3 cement facilities, add the construction activity stimulated by more affordable building materials, add the supply chain jobs in clay extraction, transport, and packaging, and you begin to see the outline of an employment ecosystem being assembled brick by brick in a country where youth unemployment has historically been both a social crisis and a security risk. Young people who have jobs are not the same demographic as young people with nothing. Traoré's government understands this arithmetic. The factories are its answer. There is also a regional dimension that is beginning to emerge. Burkina Faso is now part of the Confederation of Sahel states alongside Mali and Niger, a structure that formalized in 2024 and represents not just a security alliance but an economic integration project among 3 landlocked nations that have all made similar pivots away from Western institutional frameworks and toward resource sovereignty. As Burkina Faso expands its cement capacity, the question of regional export becomes plausible for the first time. A country that once imported cement as one of its top 5 expenditure categories could, within this decade, be supplying neighbors who face the same landlocked clinker import challenge. That shift, from net importer to potential regional supplier, would be one of the most dramatic economic reversals in Sahel history. The picture is not without its complications. The cement shortage triggered by the energy deficit is a real constraint, and it is one that the solar integration at SAMAF will help address but not fully solve. The $64 billion RELANCE plan is ambitious to a degree that invites scrutiny about whether domestic resource mobilization can genuinely generate 2/3 of that figure over 5 years. The security situation, while improved by the government's own measures, remains unpredictable. And governance concerns, including the January 2026 dissolution of political parties and the continued suspension of electoral activity, are realities that shape the international environment in which Burkina Faso must operate. These are not small things. They are the weight that this industrial project must carry. But the cement factory is there. Commission number 3. And it arrives in a week when the government has launched its largest ever economic plan, when its solar-powered cement upgrade is 6 months from completion, when its gold nationalization has reduced debt enough to fund domestic investment, and when the construction sector it serves is hungry for affordable materials. In Burkina Faso in March 2026, Captain Ibrahim Traoré is not governing a transition. He is governing a project. The cement is the evidence. The factories are the argument. And the Burkinabe people, buying bags at a price that keeps dropping as local production rises, are receiving the receipts. The Sahel is building. And this week, Burkina Faso poured another foundation.